Kyle Brooks stood in the center of the massive chamber, his hands clasped behind his back. The room was huge, bigger than any stadium he had ever seen on Earth. Strange lights floated in the air, casting weird shadows on the curved walls. The smell was different too, like metal and something sweet that made his nose itch. Around him sat the representatives of 12 alien species. Each one looked completely different from the others. Some floated in glass tanks filled with purple liquid. Others had too many arms or eyes that glowed in the dark. A few looked almost human, but their skin was blue or green, and they were much taller than any person Kyle had ever met. Kyle was the only human in the room. His simple black suit looked plain compared to the fancy robes and strange armor the aliens wore. But he stood straight and kept his face calm, even though his heart was beating fast. He had practiced this moment for months, going over every word he would say. The chamber was quiet except for the soft humming of machines. Ollie could hear his own breathing. He looked up at the high ceiling where more lights danced like tiny stars. Then he looked back at the aliens who were all staring at him. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Kyle began, his voice echoing in the huge space. I come before you today to request that humanity be allowed to join the Galactic Defense Alliance. A sound like laughter came from somewhere in the room. Kyle could not tell which alien had made it, but others began to make similar noises. Some clicked, some buzzed, and some made sounds that hurt his ears. A large creature that looked like a giant snake with arms uncoiled itself from its seat. Its skin was dark purple and covered in scales that caught the light. Two yellow eyes stared down at Kyle from a head as big as a car. Did the small creature just ask to join our military alliance? The snake alien said. Its voice was deep and had a hissing sound to it. I am Counselor Vextar of the Zelenite Empire. We have been fighting wars in space for over 10,000 years. How long has your species even been able to leave your little planet? Kyle felt his face get warm, but he kept his voice steady. Humanity achieved faster than light travel 93 years ago, Counselor Vextar. More laughter filled the chamber. The snake alien's eyes seemed to glow brighter. 93 years! We have boots older than your entire space program. A creature that looked like a giant bug stood up on its 6 legs. Its head was covered in shiny black armor, and its eyes were like dark mirrors. When it spoke, its voice sounded like many people talking at once. I am Hive Queen Zara, the bug alien said. My species conquered 12 star systems before your people even invented the wheel. What could you possibly offer us in battle? Kyle had expected this question. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. The aliens all tensed, but Kyle just pressed a button and a blue light appeared in the air. Pictures began to show in the light, like a movie playing in empty space. These are recordings from our recent conflicts with space pirates near the Alpha Centauri system, Kyle said. The pictures showed human ships fighting other ships among the stars. As you can see, our forces were able to defeat enemies with superior numbers and technology. A blob of light floating in a glass container made a sound like wind chimes. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. I am the speaker for the Ethereal Collective. We have observed these encounters. Your victories came at great cost. Many of your ships were destroyed. Your people died in large numbers. This is not efficient warfare. That is true, Kyle admitted. But we won. The snake alien laughed again, louder this time. Won? You call losing half your fleet a victory? Child, you do not understand real war. When the Kragnoth warrior clans fight, we lose maybe 1 ship for every 100 enemies we destroy. A creature that looked like a bear made of rock and metal growled in agreement. I am Counselor Thex of the Kragnoth. In our last war, we destroyed an entire enemy fleet without taking a single casualty. Your people fight like wild animals, throwing themselves at the enemy without thought. We fight to protect what matters to us, Kyle said. Sometimes that requires sacrifice. Sacrifice. Vexitar's tail slapped against the floor with a loud bang. Sacrifice is what you call it when you are too weak to find a better way. Look at you, human. How long do your people live? About 80 to 100 years on average, Kyle replied. 100 years. The snake alien reared up to its full height, which was taller than a building. I am over 3,000 years old. The youngest member of this council has lived longer than your entire species has had written language. What wisdom could you possibly have to offer beings who have fought wars since before your son was born? More aliens joined in the laughter. A creature made of living crystal chimed like broken glass. Something that looked like a cloud of gas in a metal suit made whistling sounds. Even the floating lights in their tanks seemed to pulse brighter, as if they too were amused. Kyle waited for the noise to die down. Then he spoke again, his voice calm and clear. Honored council members, I am not here to claim that humanity is the strongest or the oldest or the wisest species in the galaxy. I am here because we want to help protect the things we all care about. We may be young, but we learn fast. We may be weak, but we try hard. We may die easily, but we are not afraid. The chamber became quiet again. Some of the aliens looked at each other with their strange eyes. Others made soft sounds that might have been thinking noises. Hive Queen Zara stepped forward on her metal legs. Human Kyle Brooks, your words are pretty, but wars are not won with pretty words. They are won with strength, numbers, and superior technology. Your people have none of these things. Then let us prove ourselves, Kyle said. Give us a chance to show what we can do. Vexitar lowered his huge head until it was close to Kyle. The human could smell something like old metal and dead fish on the alien's breath. Child, if we let you join our alliance, you would only get in our way. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are weak. Your soldiers die too easily. In a real war against a real enemy, you would all be dead in the first hour. Maybe, Kyle said, but maybe not. The voting began without any more discussion. Each alien pressed a button or made a sound or changed color to show their choice. Kyle watched as every single member of the council voted no. Not one alien thought humanity should be allowed to join their alliance. When the voting was done, Vextar spoke for all of them. The Galactic Council has decided not only to deny humanity's request to join the Galactic Defense Alliance, but to formally ban your species from all military partnerships. Your people are too weak, too short-lived, and too primitive to be useful in real warfare. Kyle nodded slowly. He had expected this, but it still hurt to hear. I understand your decision. Thank you for considering our request. As Kyle turned to leave, he heard Counselor Thex say to another alien, I give them maybe 5 minutes in a real fight before they all run away crying for their mothers. More laughter followed Kyle as he walked toward the exit, but he did not look back. He had delivered humanity's message, and now it was time to go home and prepare for what was coming. Because Kyle Brooks knew something the aliens did not know. In the darkness between the stars, something was moving toward them all. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council laughed at Kyle Brooks and sent him home. The human ambassador was now back on Earth, filing reports that no one really wanted to read. The aliens had made their feelings clear, and most humans figured that was the end of it. But in the depths of space, something was moving. The first warning came from a monitoring station on the edge of the galaxy. A Zelenite operator named Kess was working the night shift, watching the long-range scanners like he had done for the past 50 years. The screens usually showed nothing but empty space and distant stars. Tonight was different. Kess rubbed his 4 eyes and looked again at the display. There were shapes moving in the darkness between galaxies, shapes that were bigger than anything he had ever seen. At first he thought the equipment was broken, but the readings kept coming. Stronger and clearer each time. The shapes were ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They were moving fast, faster than most ships could travel, and they were heading straight for the outer colonies. Kess hit the emergency button with one of his clawed hands. Red lights began flashing all over the station. Within minutes, every military base in the galaxy was getting the same terrible message. Admiral Lisa Carter was eating breakfast in her quarters aboard the human ship UNS Defender when the message came through. She was a tall woman with gray hair and scars on her hands from years of fighting pirates. The message made her stop eating and stare at the screen. The aliens had not sent this message to the humans directly. Lisa only saw it because Captain Jake Sullivan, who was good with computers, had found a way to listen to alien communications without them knowing. What they heard made their blood run cold. The things coming from outside the galaxy were called the Devourers. The aliens had old stories about them, stories that most people thought were just scary tales to frighten children. But the stories were real. The Devourers were machines that ate entire worlds, turning everything they touched into more of themselves. Lisa called her best officers to the meeting room. Captain Jake Sullivan came first, carrying his coffee and looking tired. Commander. Amy Rodriguez arrived next, still in her exercise clothes because she had been working out when the alarm sounded. Both of them had fought alongside Lisa for years, and they trusted each other completely. "How bad is it?" Jake asked, sitting down at the metal table. Lisa showed them the intercepted messages on the wall screen. The images were terrible. Entire planets were gone, leaving only empty space where they used to be. Ships that tried to fight the Devourers simply disappeared, as if they had never existed at all. "The outer colonies are already gone," Lisa said. 3 different alien species have lost their border worlds. The Devourers are moving toward the core systems now. Amy leaned forward in her chair. "What are the aliens doing about it?" "They are calling an emergency meeting of the Galactic Defense Alliance," Lisa replied. "Every species is sending their best ships and their smartest generals. They think they can stop the Devourers with their combined fleets." Jake shook his head. "They have no idea what they are dealing with. Look at these reports. The Devourers do not fight like normal enemies. Their ships can go through shields like they are not there. Their weapons break apart matter at the smallest level, and they learn from every attack." "Learning machines?" Amy said quietly. "They study how we fight and then find ways to beat us." Lisa nodded. "That is what makes them so dangerous. Every battle makes them stronger and smarter. The aliens think they can win by throwing more ships at the problem, but that will just give the Devourers more information to work with." The 3 humans sat in silence for a moment, thinking about what this meant. The aliens had laughed at humanity and refused to let them help. Now those same aliens were facing an enemy that might destroy them all. "Are we going to help them?" Jake asked. Lisa looked at her officers. These were good people who had followed her through many battles. They deserved to know what she was thinking. The aliens made it clear that they do not want our help. She said, "They think we are too weak and too stupid to be useful. Maybe they are right." "But," Amy said, because she could tell there was more. "But the Devourers will not stop with the aliens," Lisa continued. "If they eat the whole galaxy, they will come for Earth too. Our families, our children, everyone we care about will be in danger." Jake leaned back in his chair. "So what do we do? The aliens banned us from their alliance. They will not share information with us or let us fight alongside them." Lisa smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Then we fight alone. We study these Devourers ourselves. We find our own ways to beat them, and we prepare for the worst." Over the next few days, messages flew back and forth between human ships scattered across the galaxy. Lisa contacted every captain she trusted, every soldier who had proven themselves in battle. She told them about the Devourers and asked them to start gathering information. The humans had advantages the aliens did not know about. They were small and quiet, so they could get close to dangerous places without being noticed. They had learned to fight with whatever they could find, not just fancy weapons, and most importantly, they did not think like the other species in the galaxy. Captain Ben Hayes was commanding the human observation ship UNS Monitor near the edge of Devourer space. He was a young man with red hair and a quick mind for solving problems. His job was to watch and record everything the Devourers did, looking for weaknesses that others might miss. What Ben saw made him understand why the aliens were so scared. The Devourers were not just strong, they were smart. Their ships moved in perfect formations like a giant machine with many parts. When they attacked a planet, they did not waste time or energy. They simply surrounded it and began the process of breaking it down. But Ben noticed something else. The Devourers seemed to expect certain kinds of attacks. They were ready for energy weapons and particle beams and all the fancy technology the aliens used. Their defenses worked perfectly against conventional warfare. Ben sent his observations back to Admiral Carter. Along with his report, he included a simple question that would change everything. What if we do not fight them the way they expect to be fought? Meanwhile, the Galactic Defense Alliance was preparing for the biggest battle in their history. Thousands of ships from 12 different species were gathering at a staging area in the Kepler system. The aliens were confident that their combined might would be enough to stop the Devourers. Counselor Vextar commanded the largest ship in the fleet, a massive warship called the Eternal Serpent. The snake alien was proud of his vessel, which had never lost a battle. Its shields could stop any weapon, and its guns could destroy entire cities. The Devourers will learn what real power looks like, Vextar told his officers. We have been fighting wars since before they were built. They may be machines, but we are warriors. Hive Queen Zara agreed from her own ship, the Swarm Mother. Her vessel carried thousands of smaller fighter craft, each one controlled by her mind. She had used these fighters to win dozens of battles against other species. Numbers will defeat them, she said. They cannot adapt to everything at once. We will overwhelm them with pure force. The other alien commanders felt the same way. They had the best technology, the most experience, and the strongest ships. The Devourers might be dangerous, but they were still just machines. Machines could be broken. As the alien fleet prepared to move out, human ships watched from hidden positions throughout the galaxy. Lisa Carter and her officers were learning everything they could about both sides of the coming battle. They studied the aliens' battle plans and the Devourers' movements, and they began to form a plan of their own. The humans had been laughed at and dismissed. They had been called weak and primitive, but they had something the aliens did not have. They had the ability to think in ways that machines could not predict. Soon, everyone would learn what that meant. The battle began at dawn in the Kepler 442 system. 10,000 alien ships formed a perfect wall of metal and energy across the empty space between two dead planets. The Galactic Defense Alliance had never assembled a fleet this large before. Every species had sent their best vessels and their most experienced commanders. Admiral Zexmoth of the Cynthian Collective stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crystal Mind. He was a tall, thin being with silver skin and eyes that glowed blue. His people were known throughout the galaxy for building the smartest computers and the most advanced weapons. If anyone could defeat the Devourers, it would be him. All ships report ready for battle, his communications officer announced. The officer was also Cynthian, with wires connected directly to his brain so he could think as fast as their computers. Excellent, Zexmoth said. Begin formation Alpha 7, energy shields at maximum power, all weapons charged and ready to fire. The alien fleet moved like a giant machine. Each ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. The Zelenite ships formed the front line with their heavy armor and powerful guns. Behind them came the Cynthian vessels with their advanced targeting systems. The Ethereal Collective floated, in the center, ready to coordinate the battle with their telepathic abilities. Counselor Vextar slithered around the bridge of his ship, the Eternal Serpent. His yellow eyes were bright with excitement. He had been waiting for this fight for months. Today we show these machines what real warriors can do, he told his crew. We have fought 1,000 enemies and won every time. These Devourers are just another species that needs to be taught respect. Hive Queen Zara was equally confident aboard the Swarm Mother. Her ship released clouds of small fighter craft that moved like angry insects around the larger vessels. Each fighter was controlled by her mind, making them faster and smarter than any pilot. My children are ready, she announced to the other commanders. 10,000 fighters, each one eager to sting our enemies. Captain Ben Hayes watched the alien fleet from his hiding spot behind a small moon. His ship, the UNS Monitor, was painted black and designed to be invisible to most scanners. He had been ordered to record everything that happened no matter how bad it got. They look impressive, his tactical officer said. Lieutenant Carol Davis was young but smart, and she had studied alien military tactics for years. They do, Ben agreed. But I have a bad feeling about this. Then the Devourers arrived. They did not come from one direction like normal fleets. Instead, they seemed to appear from everywhere at once, as if they had been hiding in empty space itself. Their ships were black and smooth with no visible weapons or engines. They made no sound as they moved, drifting through space like deadly shadows. There were not as many Devourer ships as alien ships, maybe only 2,000, but each one was huge, bigger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The smallest Devourer vessel was larger than the aliens' biggest battleship. All ships commence firing, Admiral Zexmoth ordered. The space between the two fleets lit up like a star being born. Energy beams, particle cannons, and plasma missiles flew through the darkness. The alien weapons were powerful enough to destroy planets, and they all hit their targets perfectly, but nothing happened. The Devourer ships absorbed the energy attacks like sponges soaking up water. The physical weapons simply passed through their hulls as if they were made of smoke. Not a single Devourer ship was damaged. Impossible, Zexmoth whispered. His blue eyes went wide with shock. Our weapons are hitting them. I can see the impacts on my sensors. Sir, his tactical officer said, his voice shaking. The enemy ships are adapting to our attacks in real time. Their hulls are changing to counter each weapon as it hits them. The Devourers began to move forward. They still made no sound, but space itself seemed to bend around them. Reality twisted and warped as they passed through it. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Vextar shouted into his communicator. But it was too late. The Devourers opened fire. Their weapons were unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Instead of energy beams or missiles, they fired streams of pure destruction that unmade everything they touched. Where the weapons hit alien ships, there was not an explosion or fire. The ships simply stopped existing, as if they had never been built at all. The first wave of the attack destroyed 300 alien vessels in seconds. The crews did not even have time to scream before they were gone. Shields are useless, someone shouted over the communications channel. Their weapons are going right through our defenses. Panic spread through the alien fleet like wildfire. Ships that had fought together for years began to break formation as their captains tried to save themselves. The careful battle plan fell apart as fear took control. Hive Queen Zara tried to rally her fighters, sending them in swarms toward the Devourer ships. But as her small craft got close to the enemy, they began to change. The metal that made up their hulls started to twist and grow, turning into something that looked alive. Within minutes, her own fighters were attacking her ship. They are converting our technology, she screamed. They are turning our weapons against us. Admiral Zexmoth watched his fleet dying around him. His advanced computers could not find any weakness in the enemy ships. Every attack they tried was absorbed, analyzed, and turned back on them. Fall back, he ordered. All ships, retreat immediately. But the Devourers were faster than the alien ships. They moved through space like ghosts, appearing next to fleeing vessels and destroying them before they could escape. The retreat became a massacre. Captain Ben Hayes recorded everything from his hidden position. He watched the most powerful military force in the galaxy get torn apart like paper in a storm. His hands were shaking as he operated the recording equipment. Are you getting all of this? He asked Lieutenant Davis. Every second, she replied. Her face was pale with shock. Ben, if they can do this to the aliens, what chance do we have? Ben did not answer. He was thinking about something Admiral Carter had told him before the battle. She had said that sometimes the best way to win was not to fight the way your enemy expected. The aliens had fought exactly the way the Devourers expected. They had used their best technology, their strongest weapons, and their most advanced tactics. And it had all been useless. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, less than 3,000 alien ships remained out of the original 10,000. They limped away from the battlefield, carrying news of the disaster back to their homeworlds. Admiral Zexmoth sat alone on his damaged bridge, staring at the empty space where his fleet used to be. His silver skin had turned gray with shock and exhaustion. How do we fight an enemy that can turn our own strength against us? He asked nobody in particular. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Lisa Carter received Ben's recording. She watched the entire battle 3 times, studying every detail. When she was finished, she called a meeting with her senior officers. "Now we know what we are dealing with," she told them. "The Devourers are not just strong, they are smart. They learn from everything we throw at them." Captain Jake Sullivan looked tired. "So how do we beat something like that?" Lisa smiled, and this time it was not a sad smile. "We do not try to beat them at their own game. We change the rules." The aliens had tried to fight the Devourers with logic, planning, and superior technology. But humans had something else. They had the ability to be completely unpredictable, to do things that made no sense, to fight in ways that no machine could understand. Soon, the galaxy would learn what that meant. The Galactic Council chamber was not filled with laughter anymore. The same aliens who had mocked humanity 3 months ago now sat in stunned silence. Many seats were empty because their owners had died in the battle against the Devourers. The survivors looked tired and scared. Counselor Vextar's purple scales had lost their shine. His yellow eyes were dim with exhaustion and fear. The great snake alien who had once boasted about his military might now slumped in his chair like a defeated creature. "We have lost 70% of our combined fleet," he announced to the chamber. His voice was barely louder than a whisper. "The Devourers are moving toward our core worlds. Our remaining ships cannot stop them." Hive Queen Zara clicked her mandibles nervously. Half of her fighter craft had been turned against her, and the memory still made her shiver. They converted our own weapons into their servants. How do we fight an enemy that can turn our strength into weakness? The floating lights of the ethereal collective pulsed with dim colors. Their speaker's voice sounded hollow and defeated. "We have tried every battle strategy known to our civilizations. Nothing works. The Devourers learn from each attack and become stronger." In the back of the chamber, Kyle Brooks sat quietly in the observer section. The human ambassador had stayed on the council station even after humanity was banned from the Alliance. Nobody had bothered to make him leave because they thought humans were too unimportant to worry about. Now Kyle listened to the aliens discuss plans that sounded more like preparations for surrender than strategies for victory. Some talked about evacuating entire planets. Others suggested hiding in distant star systems until the Devourers moved on to another galaxy. A young aide from the ethereal collective floated over to Kyle during a break in the discussions. The alien was just a small ball of light, no bigger than a human child. "Human Kyle Brooks," the aide said in a voice like wind chimes. "My people are curious. Has your species found any way to fight these Devourers?" Kyle looked at the small alien for a long moment. Then he smiled sadly. "We might have some ideas." The aide's light grew brighter with excitement. "Would you share this knowledge with the council?" "I do not think they want to hear from us," Kyle replied. "Your leaders made it very clear that humans are too primitive to help with military matters." But the aide was desperate, like all the survivors. "Please. Many of my people died in the battle. If there is any hope, we need to know." Kyle thought about this. He remembered Admiral Carter's final message to him before he left Earth. She had told him to wait and watch. She had said that sometimes people needed to ask for help before they could receive it. "Very well," Kyle said. "I will speak to the council." When the session resumed, the young aide whispered to other aliens about Kyle's offer. Word spread quickly through the chamber. Within minutes, even Counselor Vextar was looking at the human with desperate hope. "The floor recognizes Ambassador Kyle Brooks of humanity," Vextar announced. Kyle stood up and walked to the center of the chamber just like he had 3 months ago, but this time nobody was laughing. The aliens watched him with the desperate attention of drowning people looking for a lifeline. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Kyle began. "I have footage from recent human encounters with Devourer forces. With your permission, I would like to share what we have learned." Vextar nodded quickly. "Show us everything." Kyle activated a holographic projector. Blue light filled the air above his head, and images began to appear. The aliens leaned forward in their seats, eager to see anything that might give them hope. The first image showed a human ship called the UNS Defender flying through space near the Tau Ceti system. It was smaller than most alien vessels, with simple weapons and basic armor. The ship looked like a toy compared to the mighty warships the aliens had lost. "This is Captain Jane Morris and her crew," Kyle explained. 3 days ago they encountered a Devourer scouting force. 3 black Devourer ships appeared on the screen, each one larger than the human vessel. The aliens in the chamber tensed, remembering their own terrible encounters with these machines. But what happened next made them gasp in surprise. The human ship did not try to maintain distance or use long-range weapons like the aliens had done. Instead, it flew straight at the Devourers in a wild spinning pattern that made no sense. Captain Morris was shouting orders that sounded more like suggestions than commands. "Hard left. No, wait, go right. Actually, just do whatever feels good." The Devourer ships tried to adapt to the human attack pattern, but there was no pattern to adapt to. The humans were flying like they were drunk or crazy, changing direction every few seconds for no apparent reason. Lieutenant Chris Barnes, the tactical officer, was firing weapons in random directions. Sometimes he shot at the Devourers. Sometimes he shot at empty space. Once he accidentally shot at his own ship's antenna. "What are they doing?" Hive Queen Zara asked, her voice full of confusion. "They appear to be fighting without any plan or strategy," Kyle replied. "And it is working." The Devourer ships were clearly struggling. Their adaptive systems kept trying to predict what the humans would do next, but the humans had no idea what they would do next either. The machines were learning from chaos, which meant they were learning nothing useful at all. Then the impossible happened. The human ship rammed directly into one of the Devourer vessels. The aliens in the chamber cried out in shock, thinking they were about to watch the humans die. But the human ship did not explode. Instead, it stuck to the Devourer like a piece of metal attracted to a magnet. Holes opened in the human ship's hull and armed soldiers began pouring out. "Boarding action," Kyle said simply. The footage switched to camera views inside the Devourer ship. The aliens watched in amazement as human soldiers ran through the alien corridors, shooting everything they saw with simple projectile weapons. The soldiers were led by Sergeant Matt Johnson, a big man with a thick beard who was yelling instructions that made no tactical sense. "Blow up anything that looks important. If it glows, shoot it. If it does not glow, shoot it anyway." The Devourer machines tried to stop the humans, but they could not adapt to weapons that were basically just metal balls fired from tubes. The advanced alien energy weapons could be analyzed and countered, but there was nothing to analyze about a simple bullet. The humans planted explosive charges throughout the Devourer ship. The explosives were not advanced devices with complex electronics. They were just chemical bombs that made big explosions. When they went off, the entire Devourer vessel broke apart. The second and third Devourer ships suffered the same fate. The humans boarded them with cutting tools, hammers, and even crowbars. They tore the machines apart from the inside using methods that were thousands of years old. When the footage ended, the council chamber was completely silent. The aliens stared at Kyle with expressions of shock and disbelief. "This is impossible," Admiral Zexmoth said. His voice was shaking. "How can primitive weapons defeat technology that our most advanced systems could not even scratch?" Kyle smiled. "Because your advanced systems are predictable. The Devourers can learn from them and adapt. But our weapons are so simple that there is nothing to learn. A hammer is just a hammer. An explosion is just an explosion." Counselor Vextar's eyes were growing brighter with hope. "How many times have your people fought the Devourers?" 17 separate encounters, Kyle replied. "We have won every single one." The chamber erupted in excited chatter. For the first time since the Great Battle, the aliens were talking about victory instead of defeat. They peppered Kyle with questions about human tactics and weapons. But Kyle held up his hand for silence. "There is more you need to know. What you saw was not just one lucky battle. It represents a completely different way of thinking about warfare." He activated the projector again. This time it showed Admiral Lisa Carter standing in the command center of a human military base. The woman looked calm and confident, very different from the panicked alien commanders they had seen during the Great Battle. "The Devourers are learning machines," Admiral Carter said in the recording. "They study their enemies and adapt to become stronger, but they can only adapt to logical, predictable behavior. Humans have something they cannot understand or copy. What is that? Kyle asked in the recording. Admiral Carter smiled. We have the ability to be completely insane. The alien council members sat in stunned silence after Admiral Carter's words echoed through the chamber. The idea that humans could defeat the Devourers by being unpredictable seemed impossible, but they had seen the proof with their own eyes. Kyle. Brooks let the silence stretch for a moment before continuing his presentation. He activated the holographic projector again, and new images appeared in the air above him. This is Captain Tony Rivera defending the mining colony at Proxima 7, Kyle said. The footage showed a human ship that looked like it was falling apart. Smoke poured from its engines and parts of its hull were missing. His ship was badly damaged and surrounded by 5 Devourer vessels. The aliens watched as Captain Rivera did something that made them all gasp. Instead of trying to escape or call for help, he aimed his broken ship directly at the largest Devourer vessel and increased speed. He is going to ram them, Hive Queen Zara whispered. But that is suicide. That is exactly what the Devourers thought, Kyle replied. The human ship crashed into the Devourer vessel at full speed. The explosion was enormous, destroying both ships completely, but something strange happened next. The other 4 Devourer ships stopped moving. They just floated in space like they were confused. The Devourers could not understand why a captain would sacrifice his ship and crew, Kyle explained. Their computers tried to analyze the logic behind the decision, but there was no logic. Captain Rivera simply decided that stopping the enemy was more important than staying alive. A new voice spoke from the holographic display. Colonel Sam Parker appeared, standing in what looked like a military command center. He was a short man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice was strong and confident. The Devourers are machines, Colonel Parker said. They think like machines. They make decisions based on data and probability. But humans make decisions based on emotions, instincts, and things that cannot be measured. The hologram switched to show Commander Lisa Grant leading ground troops on a planet covered in black metal. The world had been partially consumed by the Devourers, turning the surface into a nightmare of twisted machinery and pulsing energy. Commander Grant's forces used improvised weapons to clear this infected world, Kyle said. They fought with kitchen knives, baseball bats, and homemade bombs. The Devourers could not adapt to weapons that were not really weapons at all. The footage showed human soldiers running through the mechanical landscape, hitting Devourer machines with sledgehammers, and setting them on fire with bottles of gasoline. It looked more like a riot than a military operation, but it was working. This is madness, Admiral Zexmoth said, but his voice carried amazement rather than criticism. How do you coordinate attacks like this? How do you plan strategies that have no strategy? Kyle smiled. That is the point. We do not plan them. We just react to whatever happens and try to cause as much chaos as possible. The Devourers cannot predict chaos because chaos cannot be predicted. Captain Jane Morris appeared on the holographic display next. She was sitting in what looked like a normal ship's bridge, but everything around her was held together with tape and wire. Her crew was arguing loudly in the background about which buttons to press. We have discovered that the more disorganized we are, the better we fight, Captain Morris said. Yesterday, my tactical officer accidentally fired our main weapon while trying to open a lunchbox. We destroyed 3 Devourer ships that were trying to sneak up on us. The aliens looked at each other with expressions of disbelief. Everything they had learned about warfare over thousands of years suggested that organization and planning were essential for victory. But the humans were winning by doing the exact opposite. How many times have you defeated them? Counselor, Vextar asked. His voice was barely above a whisper. 17 major engagements, Kyle replied. We have destroyed 43 Devourer vessels and saved 6 colony worlds. Our casualties have been surprisingly light because the Devourers keep trying to predict our moves instead of just shooting at us. The chamber erupted in excited chatter. For the first time since the Great Defeat, the aliens were talking about hope instead of despair. But Kyle raised his hand for silence. There is something else you need to understand, he said. We did not develop these tactics to impress you or prove ourselves. We developed them because we had to. The Devourers are coming for Earth next, and we will fight them whether you help us or not. The truth of those words hit the aliens like a physical blow. While they had been debating evacuation plans and surrender terms, the humans had been preparing for a war they knew they might have, to fight alone. But, Kyle continued, Admiral Carter has authorized me to make you an offer. The aliens leaned forward eagerly. Even proud Counselor Vextar looked desperate to hear what the humans might propose. We will share our tactical knowledge with you, Kyle said. We will teach your people how to fight like us, and we will coordinate our fleets to drive the Devourers back to wherever they came from. What do you want in return? Hive Queen Zara asked. She knew that humans had every right to demand payment for their help. Kyle was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words surprised everyone in the chamber. We want you to stop thinking of us as inferior, he said. We want to be treated as equals in this galaxy. Not because we are the strongest or the smartest, but because we are willing to stand and fight when others would run away. Counselor Vextar slithered down from his high seat and approached Kyle. The massive snake alien lowered his great head until he was looking directly into the human's eyes. Ambassador Kyle Brooks, Vextar said formally. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I hereby request that humanity lead the defense against the Devourers. Kyle nodded slowly. We accept your request, but we do this our way, with our tactics and our methods. You will have to learn to think like humans if you want to win this war. Teach us, Vextar said simply. Over the following days, human military advisors arrived at alien military bases throughout the galaxy. They brought with them training programs that seemed completely insane to their new students. Admiral Carter herself took command of the combined defense fleet. Her first order was to remove all the advanced targeting computers from the alien ships and replace them with simple manual controls. Computers are predictable, she explained to confused alien captains. From now on, we aim by instinct and fire, when it feels right. Captain Jake Sullivan taught alien tactical officers how to make decisions based on random chance. He showed them how to use dice, coin flips, and even magic 8-balls to choose their battle strategies. If we do not know what we are going to do next, he explained, then the Devourers cannot know either. Commander Amy Rodriguez organized mixed human-alien boarding parties. She taught the aliens how to fight with crowbars, fire axes, and other primitive tools that the Devourers could not analyze or counter. The transformation was not easy. Many aliens struggled to abandon thousands of years of military tradition. But they learned because they had no choice. The Devourers were still coming, and conventional warfare had already failed. When the next major battle came, it was fought very differently than the first one. The combined fleet moved in chaotic formations that changed every few minutes. Ships fired their weapons at random intervals and in unexpected directions. Boarding parties attacked with museum pieces and gardening tools. The Devourers had never encountered anything like it. Their learning algorithms crashed trying to process tactical data that made no sense. Their adaptive defenses failed against weapons that were too simple to adapt to. The battle was won in 4 hours. Not a single Allied ship was lost. In the aftermath, as the Devourers retreated deeper into space, the aliens finally understood what Kyle Brooks had been trying to tell them. Strength was not about having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. Sometimes strength was about being willing to do whatever it took to protect the things you cared about, even if it looked crazy to everyone else. The humans had not asked to be the strongest species in the galaxy. They had not claimed to be the smartest or the most advanced. They had simply refused to give up, and that refusal had saved them all. The Council never laughed at humanity again.